I think that feminism kind of has a bad rap because it's perceived that we are above men at all times. It's just so not the case. And unfortunately, I think a lot of men in particular who have benefited from the older systems are resistant to women just being at equal level, which means that instead of them getting all these opportunities that, like they have to sacrifice a little bit so that we're even. Hello. Welcome back to another episode of the 20s Detox. I'm Bianca, your host, where we dive into all the things that I'm learning and unlearning in my 20s to elevate this decade. Before we get into this episode, make sure to share it with a friend so that they can also come along this journey of She Breaks Barriers, because we're just going to elevate and grow together. And we need to make sure we have the friend group to do so. Also, if any downloads come along the way of what I'm sharing about or thoughts that you have, just pop it in the comments either on Spotify or YouTube. And yeah, I love communicating with you guys, so go ahead and do that. A few weeks ago, a friend of mine sent this reel with a Harvard study that was about the happiness levels of a career woman compared to a housewife. And when I was reading the results, I was kind of shocked. I really wanted to get into what these differences are, a little bit about feminism, and about this new trending topic of trad wives. Let's get into it. I didn't really know what a trad wife was until I watched the podcast episode of Call Her Daddy with Millie Bobby Brown. She just had this reputation of being a trad wife for her and Jake. What a trad wife is short for traditional wife, a woman who embraces traditional gender roles within marriage and often prioritizes homemaking and wifely duties while potentially rejecting modern feminist ideals. This can include roles like cooking, cleaning, childcare, while their husband may be the primary breadwinner. The trad wife movement has gained traction online through social media, with some women promoting this lifestyle as a fulfilling alternate to career-focused paths. So the reason why I felt like I had to bring up the trad wife is because it kind of works hand in hand with this whole idea of a housewife, the traditional housewife, what it really means, and whether or not it's a good thing. There's a lot of speculation out there, some people just want to be stay-at-home moms where other people don't, but they're still under this area of trad wife. And I think social media, it can kind of give off the wrong message. So that's why I wanted to just talk about who is actually happier and what does it mean to be happy as a woman. But I think we need to start with feminism. Feminism, what is it? People think feminism means that if you're watching the video, you can see my hands, that women are here and men are here. When in reality, it's just really asking for equality. It's just asking for the same level so that women and men have equal opportunities. And I think that feminism kind of has a bad rap because it's perceived as the former, that we are above men at all times. And it's just so not the case. And unfortunately, I think a lot of men in particular who have benefited from the older systems are resistant to women just being at equal level, which means that instead of them getting all these opportunities that, they have to sacrifice a little bit so that we're even. But I would say for the most part, all men that I know that are my friends and my family are feminists. They want women and men to be even. We are going in that direction. And what's crazy is when you look back into some major feminist movements, they didn't really happen too long ago. So you almost have to wonder, why do you think that we are bringing attention to things like trad wives? And I know Sabrina Carpenter's album recently for Man-Child had a lot of heat on it. Why in general do we feel we need to keep proving ourselves? It's because we're pretty freaking new at doing this, we're pretty new at experiencing a little bit of equality. And just for reference, I'm gonna give a few facts because this shocked me. I didn't really know about this, as sad as it sounds, that women didn't have basic rights for so long. Some millennials, when they were very young, were still born where there was not full women's rights. But I'd say Gen Z is like the first generation where we didn't always have to think about that, right? But it's still very much evident in our older generations, like our mom and our grandmother. By 1918, most Canadian women could vote federally. In 1978, the Pregnancy Discrimination Act made it illegal to fire or refuse to hire a woman because of pregnancy. In 1974, in the US, the Equal Credit Opportunity Act was passed, making it illegal for banks to refuse a woman a credit card, mortgage, or loan without a male co-signer. That one's really crazy, because when you realize that it was only in 74 in the US that a woman could actually have a bit of financial freedom without a male co-signer, it's nuts. It's no surprise that so many women are confused about finances in general. For so long, we didn't even have the right to have a credit card to manage our money anyway. So we have to remember that men have had the opportunities to learn that and the language and literacy for a long time, a lot longer than we have. So, like my grandmother's like, I don't really want to deal with it. I don't really want to know. Since we're also talking about career women, I think it's important to note of when women had the opportunity to actually get an education, like a post-secondary education, and go to university. When was that possible? So let's first do US, and then we're also going to do Canada because I'm Canadian, so I also want to represent my Canadians out there. Ivy League schools were significantly later in allowing women to attend those universities, like significantly later. Almost an embarrassing number, I must say. Almost? No, it's embarrassing. Let's just pump out the numbers right now. University of Pennsylvania, 1914. Brown University, 1971. Dartmouth College, 1972, Harvard University, 1977, Columbia University, 1983, Yale, 1969, Princeton, 1969. Like, I bet all of you listening who are Gen Zs were like, my mom was not able to go to those universities. Like, they weren't even able to go to those universities when they were in their 20s. So that's crazy. And just think about that. Like, if it was just our one generation higher than us, that's important for us now as millennials and Gen Zs to navigate more of this career woman, and why also it can contribute to this pressure of like, now we have the opportunity to, we have to go the prestigious route because we have this opportunity. In Canada, we don't really have like an Ivy League Canadian schools, but we have like high-end universities. All of these seem to be a lot sooner. Go Canada. University of Toronto, 1884. McGill, 1884. UBC, 1915. That's a bit later. McMaster, 1890s. Queen's University, 1878. University of Alberta, 1908. Dalhousie, 1881. University of Calgary, 1966. So in Canada, a little bit different, right? Like, we didn't have like our parents' age and our moms had those opportunities to go to the top universities. And maybe that's why I didn't really know about the US, and maybe some of you guys don't even know that that was a thing, and no wonder why they never were able to have that opportunity. It's like it wasn't even available to them. And I feel like sometimes for myself, like, just knowing my grandmother and like her mother and my mom, just like having these sexist experiences where they're the pretty ones, like they're not the smart ones, and kind of making that their identity and focusing more on their looks and not their schooling and their career. I felt this like internal pressure to do really well in school and be like really, really wealthy And I know I'm not alone because a lot of my friends around the same time, like we were very studious. It was more of an academic school in high school where I went. And so we were very studious and we studied really hard and we wanted to get into the best universities and do really tough programs. It's almost like prove everybody wrong, but also honor our older generations who maybe didn't have those opportunities. Because like I said, some, especially Americans, like your older generations, your mom and your grandmother, even maybe your older sister, if it was put during that time, like they didn't have these opportunities. Like it wasn't even available to them. So I can't even imagine for you guys what it must feel to like feel like you need to owe it to them to do it. The reason why I wanted to bring that up is because it falls perfectly into the next part of where I'm talking about this Harvard study about who's happier, the housewives or the career women. It revealed something really unexpected, that it wasn't really about the career or the family that made a woman happier. Shocker. It's her freedom to choose. Housewives who chose the role willingly are twice as happy as career women who are working out of fear or duty. So I want to just like go into that for a bit because there's this whole movement around like trad wives. We see a lot of it online and it's very glamorized. It's very, very glamorized. And like I think even myself, I'm like, you know what? It kind of would be nice to not have to work. It would be nice to just like bake sourdough bread and go check on my chickens and raise my kids and not really worry about being a provider. And I think we need to like be very careful in just kind of like romanticizing the trad wives because there's a lot of trad wives that didn't choose this. They're just expected to go into that role. And like I mentioned, especially in the US, some of these universities just kind of freshly, if we want to go across like history, very, very freshly allowed women to actually go and study there. So the unlearning that they're not meant for that path and they're just meant for being the housewife and the caregiver and you find the provider is very much still active in even our generations. And sometimes, not all, but sometimes there's a lot of housewives that secretly are like, I would have loved to had a career. I would have loved to have an education. And it reminds me of my grandmother who she got engaged before she, I think, even finished university. My papa, her husband, was like, you know, you don't really like need to finish and like go and become a teacher if you don't want to. Like, I got you. You don't need to worry about that. And she, coming from very strong women in her life, was like, absolutely not. I don't want to feel completely dependent on you. I want to make sure I have my education and at least I can have a job. God forbid we don't make it and I'm screwed, you know? So I want to make sure I can do that. So she actually became a kindergarten teacher and kind of lived the more traditional housewife when she started having children shortly after she couldn't be a teacher. But my papa was really good at like letting her have these explorations, and like she even did this like Mary Brown exports where she would import these like really, really amazing pottery and ceramic. I can't even remember. It's sad that she doesn't really talk about it that much. I gotta peel it out of her, but she was like a good balance, but she resisted that like trad wife expectation by securing a career of some sort, even if she wasn't going to fulfill it. I'm not going to say that she had the perfect balance or total freedom to choose, but that just made me think of that. And then I also thought about, because I've witnessed women in my life that didn't actually get any education, and they weren't allowed because they had to succumb to like, you know, their husbands wanting to do that and focus on that. Being the career woman as a sense of duty for them, or out of fear in general that, you know, they're going to view me as only a pretty girl and nothing else, or fear of money in general, making sure that we have money to support ourselves. But genuinely, when it's going into it with a scarce mindset, that is actually when those housewives that chose that life are going to be twice as happier. That's what that means. And that kind of shook me a little bit because I think I didn't realize how damaging having that fear and sense of duty can really be in my life and my happiness levels, because it's so true. Like, I think back to my university years when I went to school for forensic science. I wasn't really overly obsessed with the program. I finished it, didn't do anything with it. A lot of you guys know, but I felt a lot of duty for sure of like proving people wrong, that they just saw me as like a pretty girl and very dumb. Like, I had a friend, I'll put that in quotes, that the first time she saw me, she's like, she's probably like really dumb. And then I started speaking and she's like, actually, wait, you're pretty intelligent. And even women have those mindsets because it's internalized misogyny. Even women think that about other women. And I noticed that and really resented it. And my mom, for being blonde, had that as well her whole life. And I think hearing those stories of how like exes of hers and friends of hers would belittle her for just her hair color being blonde and saying that, you know, like she's just a dumb blonde was ridiculous. But it like put this pressure onto me and this like also belief that, well, they're just going to see me as pretty. I need to prove them wrong. I need to show that I can be smarter than even them. And sometimes I did. Sometimes I shocked people with how smart I was. But then that was all ego. Didn't really seem that fulfilling. It was a bit hollow. It was a bit exhausting. So I can understand now why that is not full happiness, because it didn't come from this like center of abundance. It always came from scarcity of like proving, not being. Another point that I just wanted to mention here that was interesting: if a woman stays at home out of love, not guilt or pressure, she shows lower anxiety and higher oxytocin levels and a stronger sense of meaning. That's really cool, because I mentioned this on another podcast when I was a guest. Somebody asked me, what is the purpose of life? Like, what do you do when you help people find their purpose? And one of the things that I told her was, passion is not purpose. Passion is more external, the things we create, the things we love. That could be our career, that can be our kids and our family. Being passionate about something, but our purpose is not really about what we are, what we love, what we do, what we look like. It's more about who we are, which is deeper internal thing that really can't be touched and cannot be described. Our purpose and sense of meaning is something I know that a lot of us are always constantly searching, especially in our 20s, but in life in general, like constantly searching, like, what even is my purpose? And I think we need to really let that go, that pressure, because it's not really your career. It's not really what you look like. It's not really how much money you make. And even here it's showing a stronger sense of meaning has come from just your freedom to choose whatever the fuck you want. That could include being a career woman, or that could include making money, but it can also be not being a career woman and could just be a housewife and stay at home. But I think all of us need to respect that each of us have different things we're like driven to do, different things what we are aligned with. Like being a woman, the freedom to choose, that feminism that we were giving, that choice that we were given, means that we can do anything, or we should be able to do anything without being scrutinized. I think back to like the Sabrina Carpenter, I still have like problems with the way people are talking about it. I understand that the imaging can be pretty triggering, but at the end of the day, she chose that. She chose that. She wants to be like that. Also reminds me of like Madonna, when she's choosing. I mean, I guess I can't ask her, like being like, did you choose every single thing that you decided to do? Maybe she didn't, but Sabrina is young. We're in this new age of even stronger feminism. And for the most part, in like what she creates and talks about, it's very like she talks about being horny or a highly sexual or whatever. And that's okay. It shouldn't be immediately labeled as like demoralizing or slutty, but I don't even want to get into it too deep with it. It's just feminism doesn't need to be modest. Feminism can be loud. It can be passionate. If she wants to dress flirty or provocative, it can be provocative. It doesn't need to be modest. So I think we need to stop putting what feminism is in this like tight cookie cutter thing and really let it be, because it's so deep and multifaceted. Another fact about career women: those who are truly aligned with their work, not chasing status, are 30% more resilient to stress than working just because they feel like they have to work. That makes me think about some of my friends, women, who are in these careers they don't want to be in, who are constantly feeling stressed out or unhappy. And it's very clear to me that they don't really align with this job. They just have this expectation from their family to work and make money and, you know, do what they're told. I have this episode with my aunt Zia, it's aunt in Italian, Zia Christina. And she's like, when you love what you do, it doesn't feel draining. It doesn't always feel like work. Sure, there's going to be some things that feel like work, but for the most part, it doesn't really feel draining. That is making me really see like clearly when somebody is like constantly complaining about their work or constantly nervous about going in for work, or they are very stressed out over something that went wrong at work, which it always will. There's always going to be something that is going to go wrong, but it's your sense of being adaptable or just like deal with those little hiccups that can like give you a sign whether or not they are really loving it or if it's not really aligned with them. I think about my boyfriend, who I see what he does and I'm like, I have no idea how you haven't burnt out already. I have no clue. He's a programmer, and naturally those types of people just like work nonstop. Sometimes they will work. Sometimes my boyfriend's literally never had a day off in like 4 years. And he just constantly building things or researching things and going through problems. And yes, he occasionally has these days of like, I hate programming. I hate programming. He made this like statement being like, there's this t-shirt he wants where it says, I hate programming in one line. The second line is, I hate programming. Oh, I fixed it. I love programming. Because it really is like that. There's like times where they reach like these big bumps, but for the most part, he loves the problem solving. He loves getting through those problems. And to me, that's a telltale sign. Like you really do love what you're doing. Like you really do love this and this industry, which is so great, because other people who may have just gone into a computer science degree because it was expected of them, and now they're in this programming job and they can't stand those hiccups. They hate it. They complain about it. They're anxious about going to work and letting people down. And it's just such a telltale sign for both men and women that no wonder those where you're looking at are more resilient to it. Maybe they have a deeper reasoning for it. And we need to stop over-identifying with our work in general and being okay of being like saying, you know what, this is not for me. And I'm not going to live my life for anybody else. I'm not going to live my life for my mom, for my dad, for my grandmother, for her mother, for her grandmother. I'm living my life for me. So even though they didn't have all those opportunities as a woman, I recognize that, but that's not my responsibility. That's not something I need to fix, okay? Because if I am doing that for status or duty, I'm not going to be able to like deal with that stress well enough because I don't really love it enough. You know, if you love something, it's just a little obstacle to move forward because you see the end line. You see at the end of it. But when you don't see at the end of it, that little bump looks very daunting. And I just want to go back to that study again, because now we're getting into the most unhappy women. You ready for this? They found that the most unhappy women are those that are constantly convincing themselves of things like this. Oh, this job, it's just temporary. I know it sucks. I know I don't really like it. I know it's draining, but it's not forever. I just need to get my 2-3 years in, and then I'll be good. Second one, maybe you're a mom and you're a stay-at-home mom and you're taking care of the kids, but you didn't really want to. You wanted to have something else with your life. And you're like, well, I'll feel better when the kids grow up and then I'll have more free time. Another one is maybe you don't have a partner and you're like, I'll feel better when I find the right guy. It's not really what is happening there. It's the deception of not really seeing where you have a choice to make in your life and take back control of your life. You're just staying victim to a system, to a mindset, to a status, whatever. When you recognize hey, you know what? I don't actually need to adopt this. I don't actually need to be this way. For the first scenario, I don't actually need to get 2 to 3 years of experience if I hate what I'm doing here. If I don't actually like anything to do with this industry, maybe I'll just leave and I'll find something that I like. I don't need to subscribe to that classic system of getting 2 to 3 years for my resume and then moving on and working up the ladder if it makes me unhappy. When the kids grow up, maybe you're just focusing too much on the future when currently there are little pockets of things that you can have control over that can make your life really happy. But we really resist our current situations sometimes. And we're just putting all of our happiness in a future timeline when right now is basically the essence of any happiness you'd ever feel. And finding the right guy, who even is the right guy? Relationships are hard. Relationships are not easy. They take a lot of communication. They take a lot of work. And also, why do you need to put your happiness into something other than you? Why do you need to put your happiness into a guy? You can be great on your own. Single people are great, happy. I'm not, but I think I spent a long time single. My boyfriend, who I've been with for 5 years now, is my first boyfriend. So I was single for some time and it was great. It was fun. So it's just basically saying women who allowed themselves to say, I want to choose what I want to choose, and really say this is something deeper than duty or fear or status. This is something that I really believe in and this excites me. That could be career-wise, or it can be that, I don't have that drive. I don't want to. I remember honestly judging a friend of mine from high school when I asked her before she went into university, what do you want to do with your life? And she was like, I kind of just want to be a stay-at-home mom like my mom. And my mom is definitely not a stay-at-home mom. She's a full-blown career woman. She literally was in a meeting 24 hours after giving birth. She is a owner of a business with my dad. So very, very hardworking, always has been. And so I think I held a little bit of I was confused. I was like, what? That is so outdated. And maybe some of you guys also kind of feel that when you see these women being housewives and being like, gosh, that's so outdated. Now we can finally have an education, blah, blah, blah. And I think it's really important to remember, just because there's opportunities out there doesn't mean that it excites them. And we really need to honor feminism in general of just having the freedom of choice, just being this is what I want. This is what I want to do. And I used to think that I really wanted this very prestigious job and, have my whole identity wrapped up into my career as a forensic identifier and have that CSI life. And it was so exciting and I'd prove everybody wrong about my sensitivity because I'd be able to withstand some of these very intense cases. And the way that I was thinking about career in general, God, I'm so happy that I reached the burnout I did so early on and didn't while I was in the actual career. But I just realized it wasn't really a passion and desire and love for the field. It was I mentioned, all this proving and status and whatever. So I like the balance that I have, and I found I would say I'm more of a career woman. I love creating, I love business, I love science and health coaching. Like, I love it. I really do. I can now say that just with so much love, and also at the same time totally recognize why another person would just want to be a housewife, because I'm happy, because I choose what I want to have. And like, it just goes to show, like, when people are so negative, it's probably because they're unhappy with their life or something about them. Like, there's somebody I'm not going to mention, very unhappy with their career, constantly complains about it. Never really somebody who seems to love what they're doing, yet they still do it. And I'm like, why are you doing this to yourself? Like, I don't understand. It's also a hard pill to swallow that some people like to be in the victim mindset. They like to have something to complain about so that they wouldn't have to go through the hard thing of like making them happier. And that is a hard task, because it took me years to figure out what I even wanted, to know what to choose, because for so long I ignored my own voice and my own thoughts, and I followed what everybody else wanted from me. So yeah, anyway, that was a little interesting facts, because I do think like maybe next time that you see a trad wife thing, or the comparison of a career woman or a trad wife, like, now you have a little bit more insight of what it really means for somebody to be happy in that. And you can like hold space for both people and not really like have this separation that so many of us need to do of like us and them, like the career woman versus the housewives. And oh my gosh, the housewives are so outdated and the career women are too much in their masculine. Like, just let women be. Like, holy shit. I can't. Just let women do what they want to do. Period. Okay? Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I would love to know your thoughts on some of these. Do you agree with all of it? Do you not agree? What are your thoughts on this whole thing? Did I miss some points? Because I'm not perfect. This is total conversation. I'm also elevating with y'all. So I appreciate all of you, and I'll see you guys next time.